Hello, my name is Austin, and today I want to share my experience at a public school growing up and kind of some of the difficulties I encountered because I have mild cerebral palsy and I process a little bit slower, and there wasn't extra time really provided at the school I was going to. So what kind of happened to me was that I experienced a lot of issues keeping up with the rest of the class. This was particularly true for exams because during an exam, you only get, maybe an hour, 45 minutes, whatever, to answer the questions. And I need really double time in order to have enough time to answer everything. And what ended up occurring was that, I would only get about half of the answers completed. And I would, on my exam, I wouldn't have the second part completed, especially for math. And my teacher, it was like fourth grade, she went and actually, when I was crying and really upset about, not being able to keep up, she just kind of breaks many of the rules of teaching, but I don't think it was also a good thing that she did this, but she showed me, she's like, name your top students. And she went and actually showed me, their scores on the exam. And even though they had completed the exam, they had missed a lot of problems. And I had gotten all my problems correct, but I hadn't had time to complete it. But the bigger issue there is just why couldn't they just give me, more time to complete the exams? And that was really the struggle that I encountered there. Exploring this a little bit further, so because I was struggling with some of the exams, and also with reading was particularly challenging because a lot of the reading stuff at the time was really based upon less phonics and kind of learning the phonetical sounds of the words and memorizing those and kind of using that to read. It was much more kind of like, here's a picture of an apple, we'll sound it out and then you'll remember apple. But as someone who doesn't really process that well visually and remember the visual information as well, it was hard for me to kind of make those connections with words. So I had a very hard time with reading too. And so I ended up going to the special education center for help. And what was interesting about it was I'm in class, right? And in this class, you're imagining all the students are sitting there and they're all getting these pretzels. They get little pretzels, as you're for doing a good job or whatever in class. And then I go down to the resource center and it's like this, special room, me and the teacher. She has this giant jug of like Costco pretzels, huge, of like these really humongous pretzels that I've really never even seen in the stores today. And she holds up this giant pretzel and she's like, if you want the pretzel, answer the question and read this to me. And it was just so bizarre because it's not a motivation problem. It's almost like they were treating it like, oh, the little pretzels aren't motivating, he needs the big pretzel to be motivated. And it wasn't motivation for me, it was much more just difficulties understanding and remembering how to read and how to sound out the words, and then having more time to complete the math problems. And those things, were really challenging. I had one really, difficult experience that I had. I'll put a link, but I made my thesis film about students with disabilities and the difference between public and private school. And one of the things I really captured for that film, which really happened to me, was I was taking notes from the board and my handwriting was really bad because I had, with mild CP, I could handwrite, but it just wasn't very legible, and it took me longer than everybody else. And the teacher was like, no one can leave until Austin finishes taking notes from the board, because she took it as like, I'm being a slacker, I'm not writing fast enough. But really, it was just that it was really difficult for me to handwrite. And so then I obviously got bullied because I kept everybody waiting for recess. So those were some experiences that were kind of, really tough at the time. And I felt, I in fifth grade, I went to a different school called Westmark, and they were really helpful for me. And one of the things they actually did right away pretty much was provide me with an AlphaSmart for taking notes. And that was just such a beneficial thing, because then I was able to write all my notes and type it, and I was faster than everybody who was handwriting. So it was just such a juxtaposition to go from being the slowest person taking notes to the fastest, because you're able to use that technology. So I just kind of wanted to share some of those experiences. I'll say also too, at Westmark, they helped me a lot with my reading. I had one-on-one tutors, and they also used a lot of phonics and Linda Mood Bell and different techniques to help me improve my reading, which was really great as well. But yeah, I just wanted to share, and thank you so much for watching.